Hello, welcome back. Welcome to the War Room. This is day 40, and this is also me not getting my stuff prepared properly. There you go, that looks better. Anyway, this is day 40. This is the War Room. This is going to be a big episode. There's a lot to cover. And it's all about one thing today. And if there was anything that should be ingrained in your mind or your memory of this whole event for the last 40 days, let it be the town of Bucha. Because that is what we're talking about today. And we're going to try to answer the one question that everyone seems to be too scared to ask, and nobody wants to step forward and answer. We are now in a world war, whether you want to admit it or not. If you look at food prices, it's not all oil related. There's a reason why the Ukraine and Russia is called the breadbasket of the world. They are the biggest exporter of wheat in the world, combined. Think about how many things are controlled by grain prices. I'll just use one simple example. Beer. Think of the price of beer and what it's going to look like 6 months from now. Or bread. Combine that with a global energy shortage because one country decides to be a dick, the other country decides to stop being a net exporter of energy because the president is a dick. And look at how upside down the world is right now. So before we get into all that, I think there's a little explanation in order. When I had originally started this, my goal was to cover this every day until it was over. And I had fully intended to do so. And I still do. And somewhere along the way, my internet service decided that it didn't want to work anymore. So for the last 12 days, I have had no internet. Now, I could have tethered my phone to check my email and stuff like that, yes. But there was no way I could have done this show through a tether, essentially. Too far away from downtown Houston to get 5G, which might have let me do that, but it just wasn't going to happen. So, funny story is I'm an IT guy, as many of you know. I'm also a psychologist and sociologist. I was trying to leave IT to go do this psychology and sociology thing. It sort of soured on me, so I went back to IT. And you would think a guy like me, from the generation who created the internet, would be absolutely mental without it. But truth be told, I was perfectly fine. I was perfectly fine being disconnected for 12 days. I still had, internet in limited supply on my phone, and at work. But it was perfectly fine. I had other things I could be doing. So in the last 12 days, I got some housework done. I've tended to my dogs more. I've done a couple of home improvements. I have cleaned the disaster area, which is also known as my broadcasting room. And it's been good. I've had a couple of games that I had on my computer that I had installed and not played. And I'll just say that I think State of Decay 2 is absolutely fantastic, and I think I'm going to start streaming it on the channel when I get a chance to. I'll explain that in a different chat, because that's not what this is about. Had a touch of arthritis today. Really painful. My right hand is pretty much garbage. Had to get a root canal and crown put in to the tune of $1,900. That was last Friday. That was painful financially, but I gotta admit, the relief in my face is so much worth it. I had had a tension headache in the right side of my head for 10 days. So, no dollar amount would have been too much to relieve that. Plus, I think I scored a date with the doctor's assistant. Lovely girl, actually. Um, what else? I'm just trying to play catch up here. Got to thank the president to the tune of $71 to fill my tank the other day. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, I drive a retro Thunderbird. It's in my other playlists and Pwnery Tinkers videos. So it takes super unleaded. And yeah, it's pretty expensive to feed. Now I know, you guys have Super Duties and things with 44-gallon tanks, so I can empathize. Obviously, your tanks are bigger, so your cost per fill up is huge. But you just have to remember, the day before the 2020 election, I paid $17 to fill my tank from damn near empty to full, and now I'm paying 71, and that's kind of bullshit. Just saying. Let's see, what else have I done? I brushed up on my cooking skills, so I've been doing that a lot lately, because now I can eat properly again without a broken tooth. That's really nice. I've gone into carnivore mode. Got a friend sending me some bear backstrap and ribs, shoulder roasts, things like that. I've got another friend who's a rancher. One of my co-host, actually the rancher, he's sending me, I think, pork and beef, which is cool. What else? Sorry, I'm playing catch up right now because it's been a while, and some of you had reached out to me while I was gone, thinking that something was wrong with me. I was fine. Like, it wasn't like I needed a mental timeout or anything. I just had no internet, and I hope I was able to respond to you guys in time, so nobody was really worried about it. Anyway, let's see. The other thing I wanted to mention, I guess let's go ahead and do the shout outs for the chat. So I know my other co-host Scott's already in there. Shady Hill's also in there, Terry, Mad Sexy, and Ellis. So good evening to all of you. And Gunmetal Guy. Awesome. So cool. I guess my layover wasn't too long. Y'all remembered that I still do this. That's cool. I did have a chance to update the scroller at the bottom. And I have to admit, man, that is some dramatic changes between the last show and this one. I know there's something wrong with me. It's called I have 8 dogs. I had 9. I gave one to my coworker George. Some of you know who he is. So it was pretty funny handing over a 2-pound little potato to Big Bad George, who uses the F word like a comma, and watch him turn into a little girl as soon as I handed it to him. So that's cool. I have my probably my last puppy. I don't think I'm going to breed anymore, but I have my puppy Betty White here with me tonight, and she has to be in my lap because if I don't leave her in my lap, she will destroy everything that she touches. So there's that. Oh, that's what I was going to say. So my tooth sort of put a financial damper on me, and I didn't know when it was going to happen, so I had to set the money aside, right? Yeah, Mad Sexy, 8 dogs, but I mean, if I smashed them all together, they're still not, a Cocker Spaniel still outweighs all 8 of my dogs. They're tiny. So I set the money aside for what I thought was, my root canal or whatever. I had purchased dental insurance, and then I figured, you know what, I'm going to wait to see how much it costs before I go crazy, because I had wanted to continue my AK thing. So for those of you who didn't know, a couple years back I bought a Kalashnikov USA KP9, and then I put all the Vichaz goodies on it from Ivan the Bear Tactical. I put all the Zenitco stuff on it, and then I threw an EOTech 512 on it, and I threw a PEC 15 on it. So it's like operator AF, right? And then after that, I thought, I always wanted the rifle that looked like Osama bin Laden's, but I didn't want it in 5.45. I wanted it in traditional 7.62 39. So then I turned around and I ended up buying The closest facsimile that I could find. Now, I had done a lot of sort of offhanded research and asking around because I'm not very versed in AKs compared to like everything else, which some of you know because you come and ask me questions all the time. So I'm still learning AKs, even though I know they're mechanically simpler. Um, but the closest thing I could find that was within my budget that had a really attractive warranty was the PSA AKP. It had the right furniture on it. It had the folding brace on it, and I threw a Fakelite magazine on it, and it looked exactly like Bin Laden's because it's got that crink booster on the end of it. So I bought one of those, and then I was torn between: do I want an RPK first, or do I want a regular sized, AK? And PSA had this Romanian kit build, GF3 kit build, and I'm not opposed to it because mechanically the hardware is exactly the one I was looking for. It's got the dog leg stock and it's got, the folding bipod, and it looks legit. Plus it has a lifetime warranty, so I thought, hey, that's not bad for a hobby gun, right? Because I'm not going to war with this thing. I just want it because I think it's cool. Um, so anyway, the day I got the quote for my dental work, I was like, oh, I still have plenty of money left over, and I'm going to go buy the RPK. So I jumped on PSA's website, and wouldn't you know it, out of stock that day. Son of a bitch. So, like, Night Strike, which I don't know where the hell he's been for the last 2 weeks, but he and Scott, my co host, kept checking the website to let me know if it ever gets back in stock, and then I'm sure they're going to text bomb me going, go get your RPK, because I'll go buy it immediately without question. So this whole time, it's not available for like 10, 12 days. And come to find out that I don't know when it's coming back. So I thought, you know what? Maybe I'll just have to come back to this later. I hope I didn't miss the bus on it. I hope they make more of them. But if they don't for a while, that's fine too, because I can always just put away the money. But then Jaime Zorro, he decided to suggest to me, why don't I get a Polish AK, the WBP AKs? And he showed me his on camera, and it's got this really cool crest on the rear sight block, and I thought, yeah, okay, I want a regular one too, sure. Because I was kind of holding out for PSA's new Spiker, which is essentially a standard AK, but it's got the flip-out bayonet, kind of like my M44 does. But I don't have to have that one because I still don't have an ETA on that. And truth be told, I can always just buy that later anyway, right? I mean, what's one more AK? So he showed me the Polish one. I instantly fell in love with that thing, and I'm like, yeah, I want that. And come to find out, those are out of stock too. Son of a bitch. So the one I'm holding out for is the Classic, which is just like uh, I don't know what the wood is, to be honest. It looks a lot like my Nutmeg AKP. So it's a lighter colored wood, um, but it's called the WBP Fox. And the reason I want the Fox is because it has a stud on the rear trunnion that allows you to use a clamped down barrel top cover mount. It slides into a groove on the rear sight block, and then it has this cammed lock that goes across the stud on the rear trunnion. So I saw that and I thought, yeah, buddy, I want that. Because I've gotten sort of, I like the top cover rail mount as opposed to the side ones. And this one doesn't actually touch the top cover, it just floats above it. So it's not like I have to worry about a wandering zero. And it's got a tensioning screw and adjustment for that rear stud, so you can really lock it down. So I want that. And wouldn't you know it, they're out of stock on those two. Damn it. So right now, I'm literally in a holding pattern for 2 different AKs. And then who's to say if the freaking Spiker comes out? If the Spiker comes out first, then I'll just go buy that and be like, screw it, I got that one. And then they also got this one called like the GF5 or GF4 Desert Battlefield Pickup. I like the look of it. It's got a dong on it too, which I don't care about, but whatever. But I don't know. I'm on an AK kick. That's all I'm saying. And before the end of this year, I vow to build one that looks like the one from Fallout 4 with a shovel handle for a stock. I will do that. I fucking quote me on that. I will do that. I'm gonna get it with that flip over. What do they call it? The flip over rear trunnion adapter thing that lets you use a buffer tube for an AR, and then that way you can use stocks on that. But instead of using a buffer tube, I'm just gonna match the thread pitch and then get a shovel handle and screw it into that. I know it sounds ghetto, but if you play Fallout 4, you know exactly what the rifle I'm talking about. And I will spend the money and get it properly Cerakoted, just like the one in the game. I will do it. I fucking do it. I promise. Anyway, so I think now that you're all caught up, now you know Pwnery's in the market for AKs because I've got everything else. So, and I already got my Anaconda, and I almost bought an 8-inch Anaconda, but I don't really need it. Like, I've got the 6-inch, and I'm really happy with it. So, let me go ahead and introduce to you my panelists. Today I have Mr. FNH, and I've got Scott, and I see Warsaw is actually in the chat today, so if he drops in, I'll pull him in. But you've never played Mad Sexy. Okay, check it out, bro. My foray into the series was Fallout 3, which covers Washington, D.C. If I were to recommend the game to anybody, start with that one, then play New Vegas, then play 4. And then you'll understand why I'm so obsessed with it. I love the lore and the universe of Fallout. Like, if the world's gonna go to shit, then I'm ready for that. Like, that life right there, I'm ready for that. What I really need, actually, is... Do you guys remember a few years ago there was an AR-15 that was called the Gilboa Snake, I think it was, and it was a double-barreled AR with it was basically a double-thick receiver. Oh, no kidding, you're an April baby too. Hey, congratulations, happy birthday. Mine's in another 9 days. What is it? The Gilboa Snake, right. So it's a double-wide receiver, holds 2 magazines. It uses like a double fat trigger, I guess, or something that links 2 trigger packs together. And I think they both run on a tandem charging handle. Don't quote me on that last part, though. I want to build a Gilboa Snake with twin 50 Beowulf barrels. But, you know, I shoot big bore and I probably knocked a screw loose in my head somewhere, but... Anyway, I think that would be cool. Alright, so let me go ahead and pull my panelists in, because I know they're probably wondering what the hell I'm doing. So this is Scott, good evening to you, and this is Mr. FNH, good evening to you.
Well, howdy.
So now we're going to go into panel view, so there's the 3 of us. I'm just going to get straight into the stories, because having the time off was kind of nice, but I realized that I was running the show way too long. Which, funny, I just did an 18.5-minute intro. So
Yeah, we thought you forgot about us.
no. Oh, you know what else? I'll tell you what I did forget to do. I forgot to fix the damn scroller for what day it is. It's day 40. Whoops. Sorry. The stats are good, though. I promise. And I just fixed the other thing in real time, too. You gotta give me a mulligan here. It's been 12 days.
Well, give us a quick rundown. What are we talking about here?
Okay, so... Today's entire show is focused around the massacre in Bucha. And I did look up how to pronounce this town. It's Bucha. It's, I think, slightly northwest of Kyiv. And this is the climax of atrocity for this war, without a doubt. Because for years... For those of you who know me, I've always said that you should never break Godwin's law. The moment you have an argument or a debate or a discussion and somebody mentions Hitler or Nazi Germany, the discussion's over. Just like shut the fuck up, the discussion's over, right? Here's the problem with that. Up until this conflict, that law applied. This conflict has taken that law, wadded it up into a nice little ball, and sent it to the fucking moon. Because everything you're about to see. My video today is going to be age 18 plus restricted by YouTube, guaranteed. There are some photos that I'm going to show you today, and it's going to upset some people, but you have to see it, because not looking at it doesn't make it go away. It's just the reality of it. War makes nothing, I always say this, nothing sets the world's priorities or resets humanity's priorities faster than a world war. Nothing does. Also, you get to see the absolute best and the absolute worst in humankind during a war. So, all that aside, I have been keeping track, thanks to Night Strike, who's not here, but I found a list of all the generals that have been killed. It's a pretty good sized list, and it's getting bigger.
Just want to say, R.I.P. Night Strike, wherever you are.
It's it's getting pretty bad. Like, I can give you a couple, or I'll just give you the quick rundown since I got it here on my list, or on my script today. Several senior military officers, Commander of the 1st Panzer Army, Lieutenant General Sergei Kysel. Removed from office, Commander of the 6th General Army, Lieutenant General Vladislav Yershov. Removed from office and arrested. Chief of Staff, Deputy Commander of the 35th All-Military Army, Major General Sergei Nerkov, seriously wounded. Chief of Staff, Deputy Commander of the 36th General Army, Major General Andrei Saritsky, seriously wounded. Deputy Commander of the 41st All-Military Army, Lieutenant General Andrei Sukovetsky, murdered by his own people. Commander of the 49th General Army, Lieutenant General Yakov Ryazantsev, murdered by the Ukrainians. Commander of the 58th All-Military Army, Lieutenant General Mikhailo Zusk, removed from office and arrested. Whereabouts unknown. These are all like punishments and handouts. That's like on not. I don't think that those are on Night Strike's list, but anyway. All right, so let's go ahead and get to the stories because we do still have a lot to cover. I've got a lot of pictures to show you. If I get 18 plus restricted, so be it. I'm also planning on doing I was going to do it today, but I think I'm going to hold out till day 50. I'll try to hold out till day 50. I'm going to take a copyright strike for it because I had a vision and I have to do it. I have to make it reality. But I'm going to do a photo montage of this war for 50 days, and it's going to be done to the backdrop theme song of, shoot, what was the name of that show? I just had it on my screen. I'm so ashamed. Oh, The Winds of War. Herman Walks The Winds of War. Which, if you've never seen that, you are doing yourself a great disservice. It came out in like 1978. And it was the prelude into World War II. I'll put it to you this way. Robert Mitchum's in it, so that gives you an idea how old it is. It's fantastic. And what's really scary and haunting is the parallels of what's going on in that show compared to what's going on in the Ukraine right now. And that's why I was saying the thing about Godwin's Law. What had happened in Bucha is exactly what you saw happen in most of Poland in World War II, or like the Armenian genocide, or the siege of Stalingrad. That's what you're seeing. But what's shocking is the people who were victims during the siege of Stalingrad are now the Nazis. They're the ones that are doing this. The fact that a professional army is doing what they're doing like they did in Bucha is insane to me. Like, it's Lord of the fucking Flies. These people are off their rocker, and it's either because they're angry or they're frustrated or they're starving or they're just fucking savages. And you know what you do to savages? You put them down like animals. Anyway, let's get started. Story time. Let me read some of the chat, I guess, before I do that, because you guys have been very active today. Russians are sending out generals to do the work of junior officers because of a lack of... Yeah, you're right, actually. The whole fucking army's green. Their whole army is green. You have extremists that are in power that are being led by ex-KGB and FSB guys, and then you've got armies of conscripts that are either scared to death to disobey, or they are brainwashed like Schutzstaffel. You know, I'm sorry, but you have to draw those comparisons. That's how it's so similar. It's insane. And the really tragic thing is the world is too scared to admit that this war is only going to be halfway over when the Russians are pushed out of Ukraine. This man, like, Biden was a gaffe machine 2 weeks ago, right? For the last 2 weeks. You've probably all heard the stories about the things he was saying while he was visiting Poland, and he shouted out, "This man cannot remain in power." You know what? That's the first fucking truthful thing he's said since he's taken office. That's the first thing that came out of that idiot's mouth that I agree with. I believe him and I agree with him in this. The war's only half over. Somebody's got to go in and get that son of a bitch. He's got to die. He cannot be allowed to be on this side of the grass. Too many people have died. If he invaded Ukraine and shelled military targets only, and, you know, a couple of military casualties, one could argue that he could be removed from office and maybe imprisoned. But you guys have seen it for yourselves for the last 40 days. That guy can't be allowed to live. Somebody's got to go in and get him. I can be the John C. Woods if the country needs it to be. If you don't know who he is, look up John C. Woods, the hangman of Nuremberg. A man who didn't even qualify as a hangman. He stepped forward and volunteered, and he came up with these creative and bizarre ways to basically end his victims on the end of the rope. It's a pretty good story about him, about how he knew that this fat guy was, if he made a rope a certain thickness, the fat guy's head would pop off, stuff like that. Yeah, that guy was special. Alright, so let's get started, like I keep saying and not doing. Here's your first picture. And what you're looking at there is the first of many pictures of Bucha that I'm going to show you today. And it's, you look at that woman in the middle of the picture and you're just thinking, no fucks given. Like, how can you just walk through that? Anyway, the first story comes to me at 7 minutes after midnight, my time. It is 7 o'clock in the morning, roughly around the time that photo was taken. President Zelensky addresses the massacre in Bucha. As Russian forces withdrew from the area around Ukraine's capital city of Kyiv, they left horrific scenes in their wake. Bodies wrapped in black tarp lay in a mass grave on the outskirts. In another village, the bodies of a mare, her husband and son, and a man believed to be a Ukrainian serviceman were also found lying in a muddy pit behind a plot of land with houses where Russian forces had slept the night before. Zelensky addressed these scenes in his address in the wee hours of Monday morning. Presidents do not usually record addresses like this, but today I have to say just that. After what was revealed in Bucha and the other cities, our other cities the occupiers were expelled from, hundreds of people have been killed, tortured, executed, all civilians, corpses laying in the streets, mines in the area. The bodies of the dead were mined. The pervasive consequences of looting, he added. Concentrated evil has come to our land. Murderers, torturers, rapists, looters, who call themselves an army. Those who deserve only death after what they've done. I want every mother of every Russian soldier to see the bodies of those killed in Bucha, in Irpin, and in Hostomel. What did they do? Why were they killed? What did the man who was riding his bicycle down the street do? Why were ordinary civilians in an ordinary peaceful city tortured to death? Why were women strangled after their earrings were ripped out of their ears? How could women be raped and killed in front of their own children? How could their corpses be desecrated and laughed at even after death? Why did they crush the bodies of these people with their tanks? What did the Ukrainian city of Bucha ever do to your Russia? How did all this even become possible? Russian mothers, even if you raised looters, how did they also become butchers? You couldn't be unaware of what's inside your children. You can't overlook that they are deprived of everything human. No soul, no heart. They killed deliberately and with pleasure. That's his speech this morning. Now, I know I've been saying that I don't want to cover human interest stories. This is not human interest. This is human atrocity. This is the worst of humanity on full display. And the whole world is just sitting there looking at it going, oh, that's terrible. We're going to throw more sanctions at them. Because, sanctions stop bullets, don't they? They stop people getting run over. They stop people being murdered in the streets. I'm going to show you a photo later of something that should remind you of something else. And I'll point it out, because you know me, if there's a wound, I'm going to pick at it. So that's my first story for you. That's what I woke up to this morning, by the way. About an hour later, this happens. If you don't know who this guy is, don't worry, I'll tell you. So it's now 8 o'clock in the morning in Poland. And the Prime Minister, Mateusz Morawiecki, I promise you I'm not saying that right, but I have a very hard time with Polish names. That's him. He called on the European Union to enact sanctions which actually work. Didn't I just say that they don't work? To derail Russia's economy following acts of genocide at the Bucha massacre. The massacre is more than an alarm bell for Europe and the world. It is a terrible cry for justice, freedom, and the right to life, for basic and universal values, he added. The EU must confiscate all Russian assets in its western banks, as well as those of Russian oligarchs. It must sever all trade relations with Russia without delay. European money must stop flowing to the Kremlin. Putin's criminal and increasingly totalitarian regime needs to have one thing imposed on it: sanctions which actually work. You see, they still think that this is going to stop the killing. The bullets have already been paid for. The missiles have already been paid for. The tanks have already been paid for. There is no sanction you can levy on this army to stop them. So why do you think it's going to work? It's almost like liberalism has taken over. It's liberalism.
Target exact things. That very specific things, one after another, just very incrementally, very, very slowly, nothing will get done.
Right, but they're like, okay, these oligarchs can't travel. You can't buy this. You can't take your money out of your bank account. Those things are sanctions against, yes, Russian leadership, but those are Russian leaders who are civilians, politicians. They're not doing shit to the generals and the field commanders because the army has what it needs to fill out its campaign. They've got beans and bullets and tanks. No sanction is going to walk into the battlefield and say, oh yeah, all these tanks, they're not yours anymore. You're going to have to leave these behind. Could you imagine some liberal asshole walking onto a Russian battlefield and saying, yeah, those tanks, yeah, you can't have those anymore. We sanctioned you. They would laugh their fucking head off before they blew yours off. Like, they don't work. They just don't work when you need them to. They don't do what you... Do you know what sanction works? What an actual sanction that would work is? I think they're called cruise missiles. Write the word sanction on a cruise missile and put it through the bedroom window of every oligarch in Russia. That's a sanction that would work. I don't know.
We really want that kind of attention?
Yes. Put in a flight of like 30 B-1 Spirits armed with like 400 incendiary bombs and just carpet bomb the Russian infantry. That's a sanction that works. That gets them to stop shooting, because then they're all dead. That's the whole point. You want the military to stop fighting. You want them to stop doing what they're doing. Putin's not bothered by any of this right now. All we're
No,
doing,
obviously.
is we're doing the very thing that we're accusing the Russians of doing to the Ukrainians. Okay? The Russians are breeding an entire generation of bitter hatred towards themselves by the Ukrainian people. Ukrainians will never forgive the Russians for this. That whole generation, 4 generations of Ukrainian people, old people, adults, young adults, and children, right now, all of those people are going to hate Russia till their dying day. All of them, even the youngest ones, because they probably lost a parent or something, right? So all these sanctions are doing is they're making the average Russian citizen hate the West. You took away my Burger King. You took away my ability to use PayPal across the world. You took away my social media so I can post messages saying that I'm a Russian citizen, but I'm opposed to this war. Like, we're breeding hate on both sides. We're just doing it in different ways.
Newsflash: your average Ruski already hates America, dude. I found this out firsthand multiple times, where it's just like, whatever, dude.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's kind of an outlier thing, though. In all honesty,
It's an unfortunate situation.
it's sort of an outlier thing because
Oh,
you got to
I
remember
want to say that.
most of the guys that are in the infantry right now in the Russian military, they were never born into communism. They were born after the fall of the Soviet Union. They don't
Right.
know anything else. They know McDonald's, they know Starbucks, they know Sony, they know Netflix. That's all they know. And we've just taken it away from them as a punishment for their leader being a dick.
No, we take it away from them for following their leaders'
Yes.
fucking illegal orders.
Yes. But the thing is they also
Yeah, you
can't.
have to change the people, man.
They can't stop them. That's the problem. Because
Yeah, they could. They could just say, sit on their ass, say we ain't moving.
the Russian people can't stop the Russian leadership because the leadership are the only ones with the guns. Russian citizens don't have the guns. That's why there's no coup. Now, like we talked about before, sure, a Russian general could stand up and put 2 in Putin's head and walk away. Sure, that happened in Korea.
Maybe.
My dad was there when it happened. He was at the table when it happened. It's just, who's going to do it? Where's FPS Russia when we need him? The dude isn't Russian. I do a better accent than he does. I do a more convincing Russian accent than he does. Of course, I haven't had anything to drink tonight, so you're not going to get to hear it. Ha! Alright, sorry. I'm dragging this out. Let's move on. I'm just saying, sanctions are bullshit. At the military level. Alright, so, not to be deterred, French sanctions time! Yeah, that's Macron, right? So, 9/11. Paris time. French President Emmanuel Macron called for additional sanctions on Russia following a massacre in the Ukrainian town of Bucha. Yeah. During an interview on French Interradio, Macron said very clear clues indicate Russian forces committed egregious actions, including possible war crimes in the city. Russia has denied any wrongdoing on their attack. These people still think sanctions work. Anyway. Moving on. Oh, there's Night Strike.
Hey, I thought that war video you were talking about was going to be played to "I Need a Hero."
Oh, God. Oh, that's
that
right.
kind of a
He
video,
can't own
apparently.
guns anymore because he has a felony, doesn't he? Poor guy. Oh, well. Alright, so, moving on. This one says peace talks. Here you go. Negotiations will continue. Oh, this is 10 o'clock, by the way. Negotiations will continue despite Bucha massacre.
Wait a minute. Night Strike has risen?
Mm-hmm. Zelensky
move on.
pledges to continue peace talks with Russia despite atrocities committed in Ukraine. It's difficult to say how after all that's been done, but we can have any kind of negotiations with Russia. But as president, I still have to do it. Any war has to come to an end. Here's the thing. Can he just walk into this meeting? Do you guys remember the movie The Fifth Element?
Yes.
Do you remember
Bruce
when...
Willis.
Yeah. Do you remember there was
We want
the...
to negotiate.
Yes.
I remember this.
Exactly. I'm so
cigarette.
glad you knew the scene I was talking about.
I know exactly the scene
So he
you're
was like,
talking about.
we're sending someone in to negotiate. And then so like, you just see Zelensky walk in straight to Putin, pull out a pistol, put two in his head, turn around and walk out. And just have the whole world go, where did he learn to negotiate like that?
Well, I want to point out that in that movie,
Yeah.
all of his cigarette was a filter, and that he only
Yeah,
got like
just
one
like-
or two drags.
It
of
was like a
cigarette.
cigarette in reverse.
Yeah. He
Yeah.
just barely lit it, and it took a puff or two, and it was
He
gone.
took one big drag and it was gone.
Well, if you notice, the filter was twice the size of the cigarette.
Yeah, it was like a cigarette in
That's what I
reverse.
just said.
Like
It
the
was all
cigarette part
filter,
of the
no
cigarette was
cigarette.
filter, and the filter part of the cigarette was the cigarette. And he took one drag, and that was it. That is what you have to look forward to if you keep voting Democrat.
Sorry, I just
Pretty
wanted to point
much.
that out when you were.
All right, so I gotta bring Night Strike in here, who finally decided to show up after 2 weeks. There he is. Okay, now let's move on. We're moving on to the next story, though. So then there's this guy, and you
Hello?
might know him as the Pope. I know him as the One Lunger because he only does have one lung.
That's how I've been feeling.
I thought he was known as the last pope.
No, he's the current one. 12:28 p.m. Rome time, Italia. Pope Francis called the ongoing invasion of Russian forces in Ukraine a sacrilegious war during a prayer Sunday where he had called for its ending. Yeah, a lot of good that did, didn't it? May we be tireless in praying and in offering assistance to those who suffer, the Vatican statement said from Malta. Pope Francis later told a group of reporters he had no immediate plan to visit Kyiv, but such a visit was on the table. Yeah, he was like, I ain't stepping one fucking foot in that Orthodox hell. Are you kidding me?
About getting her done.
He was like,
No
the
one
Pope also recognized reporters who have died or were injured covering the news in Ukraine. I want to offer condolences for your colleagues who have fallen, no matter what side. I don't care. Your work is a work for the common good. They died in service of the common good. Information. We cannot forget them. They were courageous. I will pray for them, and may the Lord reward their work. Now, I'm going to keep my religious bias aside, but I'm just going to say that prayer works even less than sanctions do. That's all I'm saying.
Even less than how much.
I'm just saying. I'll just leave it at that. I don't want to like kick a hornet's nest of religion.
Praise Night Strike.
Let's not get into religion.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So moving on. So my alarm goes off. It's about 7:30 in the morning now.
Oh God.
Oh yeah. But it's 2:30 in Ukraine, and no picture for this one. The United Kingdom's Ministry of Defense released a statement Monday saying that Russian troops, including mercenaries from the Russian state-linked Wagner private military company, are being moved. They're headed to eastern Ukraine. Russian forces are continuing to consolidate and reorganize as they refocus their offensive into the Donbas region in the east of Ukraine. So the picture that you're looking at on the right side of your screen, for those of you on the YouTube side, this is a frontline battlefield map, like the changes in the battle dynamic. And what you're going to notice is the pink areas are, the intensities of action. So it starts at the top left, and then it moves to the right, then the bottom left, and then to the bottom right. And what you're going to notice is that they're making a land bridge between the Donbas region down towards Crimea, and then as of last night, which would have been today over there, they began their first artillery barrage of Odessa, which is I know it's kind of hard to see, but it's the black dot at the bottom left of the bottom right picture. So, what I suspect is going on is Putin originally tried to take Kyiv to essentially cut the head off of command and control for the rest of the country. He failed. So his alternative plan is to make Ukraine a landlocked nation. And the reason I say that is because they already had Crimea, and they needed Donbass and Luhansk and Donetsk to consolidate a path from the eastern edge of Ukraine or the western edge of Russia. So they had like enough acreage to build a highway between Russia straight to Crimea. And then once they had that area, they're pushing from Crimea into Odessa, because Odessa's the last seaport that Ukraine has left. If that gets taken over, Ukraine has just become a landlocked nation. Russia might actually stop after taking Odessa and say, we are willing to negotiate. And then they're going to be like, what the fuck do you want to negotiate? You are invaders. And they'll say, we will stop killing your people, but we keep all land we've taken. See, I told you I did a better accent than FPS Russian.
Nah, I think you did a better one.
Fuck you.
Yeah, all I have to say is they won't take that deal because you know why? Sources say the people in Bucha say otherwise.
Bucha.
Oh wait, they're not there no more.
It's Bucha. I looked it up.
They will never say take that deal because they're never going to accept any deal.
Well,
where
that's
they're
the
not
problem.
a whole
After
country.
Bucha, they're not going to take any deal like that because they don't believe they.
No, they shouldn't have to.
Word the Russians say.
They shouldn't have to.
No.
But just imagine, if you will, they take over Odessa. Kyiv loses all its leverage because the people are starved out, right? If he capitulates because he just wants the killing to stop, then his country becomes landlocked, which means they have no import or export ports anymore, which means they are constantly under the iron fist of the Soviet Union again, or the Russians again. That's why it can't be allowed to fall, which is another reason why right now, on day 40, this war has become critical mass. Because if Odessa falls, the country's gonna fall, because you can't get anything in anymore. As soon as they take over the coast, they'll just start working the north again, and they'll cut off the border to Poland. Then it's totally over. Like there's nothing they can do.
If you remember, my initial projection was 46 days. I think something like that is what I said.
Mm-hmm. So they're going to be hitting Odessa hard for this week, essentially.
Yeah, that's all they got to do, and the war's over.
Well,
No.
tactically, yes. No, I know what you're saying. Tactically, you're right.
No, because the Ukrainians are fighting hard, and they're not.
That you're missing the point, Mike.
You don't have to
Tactically, the
worry about
war's over.
sanctions. No, you don't have to worry about sanctions when you just fucking stole the whole breadbasket, bro, of
Exactly.
the UK.
Yeah, exactly. The thing is tactically the war would be over. I know what you're saying. You're saying the Ukrainian people will resist and it'll go to guerrilla fighting for 10 years. You're right. But the tactical war would be over because they now have no command and control, and they have no logistics, and they have no port. So they would have to.
Tea in China.
They would be forced to go to the table because they would starve to death otherwise. Which, let's be honest, they'd go to the table, and Russians being Russians, they would just wholesale slaughter these people in the shadows for the next 10 years. It's just what they do.
Log it is.
And I've got a story that I'll share with you here shortly to prove it. But let's keep going, because we're gonna do 2 hours, aren't we? Damn it. All right, so moving on. Third breakfast? No, second alarm went off. 8 o'clock now. And it is 3 o'clock in Moscow. Evening. Russian President Vladimir Putin on Monday has signed an order making it harder for residents of countries that Moscow deems unfriendly to get a visa. The order, in response to sanctions levied against Moscow, suspends Russia's simplified visa issuance program with some European countries as well as Norway, Switzerland, Denmark, and Iceland. 4 countries that have done nothing so far to this war.
Well, Switzerland did give up their neutrality.
Yeah, that was kind of history in the
For
making,
the
wasn't it?
first time in history since their founding.
That is
You know
true.
you're on the wrong side when Switzerland takes sides against you.
Yeah,
That is-
when
this is true.
Switzerland takes sides, you know you screwed
You
up.
know who you have to fear the most? The Swiss Navy. I've seen that documentary. The Swiss Navy are fierce.
You know who you have to fear?
Well, he
True.
recently died, so
The Swiss Guard.
no, fucking Swiss Navy, dude. They have the finest navy in the world. They're so great they don't even need an ocean. Sorry,
They're a landlocked nation. They don't
bad
need a navy.
joke. I don't know. Maybe they have airships like Final Fantasy. I'm kidding. I know they don't.
Well,
They don't
actually,
have
might
those hover carriers like in Marvel Universe yet.
They might have Zeppelins. They might have Zeppelin.
That'd be cool. Okay. Anyway. Let's see. Where am I at? About 15 minutes later, I bring you news from New York, actually. And I believe this is the photo. Look at that asshole. U.S. Ambassador to the United Nations Linda Thomas-Greenfield announced Monday that the U.S. will ask UN members to suspend and expel Russia from the Human Rights Council as its invasion of Ukraine continues. With a 2/3 majority vote, the 193-member UN General Assembly can suspend Russia's membership for committing violations of human rights, according to Reuters. Russia's participation on the Human Rights Council is an absolute farce, Thomas Greenfield reportedly said Monday, adding that it is wrong, which is why we believe it is time the UN General Assembly vote to remove them. They need a 2/3 majority vote. The only nations that would dare say no would be Russia, China, Iran, North Korea.
India.
I
No,
think
India
India
would
would abstain. They would abstain. But I mean, it's like, you got the 2/3. Just fucking do the vote.
You know those countries that you just named?
Yeah,
You know there was actually a name for them.
go on.
Which president was it? Oh, that's right, the Axis of Evil.
HVS wanted to point out that no Swiss naval vessel has ever been sunk by enemy action in its entire history. He would be correct.
Yeah, best and worst navy.
I mean,
ever.
what if they had like riverboat battleships? I don't fucking know. Flat bottom
was a thing.
battleships.
That
Anyway.
was a thing, actually.
We had them, sort of. I don't know. We need that back. We need that flat bottom boat battleship.
They were
on,
called
on-
monitors.
Well, we need those with like, I don't know,
The
fucking
British used
the
those in
steel
World War
drivers
II.
with a banjo solo in the background for the fucking theme song. Badass. Anyway, oh, by the way, if someone from the Steel Drivers is listening, if you want to write me a theme song for my show, I'll fucking play it. All right, moving on. Next picture.
Steel Drivers or Steel Panther?
Steel Drivers. They're sort of a country / bluegrass sort of thing. I got into that recently for the last couple of years. I don't know why. Really good though. Okay, next picture. I'm taking you back to Bucha. And this is the picture that's going to probably get me age restriction. One of many, but 10:08 a.m. Wait, no, I already did that one, didn't I? Oh, no, never mind. This is it. 10:08 a.m. UN High Commissioner for Human Rights Michelle Bachelet said Monday that it is vital that all efforts are made to ensure that there are independent and effective investigations into what happened in Bucha to ensure truth, justice, and a larger slice of pizza? No, and accountability. Sorry. as well as reparations and remedy for victims and their families. She added that she is horrified by the images of civilians lying dead on the streets and in improvised graves in the town of Bucha in Ukraine. Reports emerging from this and other areas raise serious and disturbing questions about possible war crimes, grave breaches of international humanitarian law, I should have kept reading, and serious violations of international human rights law. That is the beginning of a mass grave. There are actual videos of this very spot where they just kept dumping body after body after body. And if you notice, they're not very deep. That's like, what, 3 feet tops? Maybe? Because, I mean, think about
the ground's probably still frozen.
All the mounded dirt up on either side of that trench is going to go back into that hole. So, man.
Probably so they can dig them up and eat them later on when it warms back up.
For the Russians to eat them? Ew. Anyway.
I mean,
beats
whatever.
That barley garbage that they're forced to eat, right? There I go, anti-barley again. Anyway.
You need to stop with the barley stuff.
Now, one time I went hunting with a friend, and somebody had buried. I could only imagine it was the remnants of a deer, real shallow, and the dirt had settled slightly. And I was walking across this field, and my foot went right through the dirt, right through the body cavity of whatever was buried down in there. And the smell was instant. Like, I had to burn those boots. I was pissed.
Damn.
I was fucking pissed. Could you imagine being a Ukrainian 3 months from now and walking across that field and your foot sinks into the dirt? Dude.
Yeah, no.
Yippee.
That would be a bad day. Somebody's gonna pay for that. Dogs have to eat same as worms. Damn it. Anyway, no, dogs don't have to eat in Ukraine because the Russian soldiers are probably eating the dogs because they're starving. If somebody is in the Ukraine and they find a bunch of captured Russian stuff, please tell me if you find a North Korean cookbook. I'm sorry I had to. We talk about dogs. Anyway, moving on. It is now 10 minutes to 11. I'm at work already. It's 10 minutes to 6 p.m. In the Ukrainian time. Okay, sorry. And here's the tweet that I've got for you. The leader of the British Secret Intelligence Agency, MI6, where I come from, said Sunday that we knew that Russian President Vladimir Putin's invasion plans for Ukraine included summary executions. The shocking assertion appears to tie Putin directly to what Western countries have declared as war crimes coming to light in the suburbs of Kyiv, as Russian troops have pulled back in recent days. See, that's the thing. The tide of Russian soldiers has gone out. So everything that they have just left behind is now exposed to the elements. The media is an element in this case. They're seeing this. They're sharing this. We're getting mass murder stories post facto because now the media can go in and see it. They just have to follow the smell, which is terrible. It just happens time for him to be cooking dinner. Nice. All right, so Ukrainian officials and at least the leaders of Poland and Spain have gone a step further to say Russians committed genocide during what's been deemed the Bucha massacre. As shocking images have surfaced of civilians with their hands tied behind their backs and shot and killed at close range, with the bodies of women and children showing signs of rape and torture. We knew Putin's invasion plans included the summary executions by his military and intelligence services. Chief of MI6 Richard Moore tweeted on Sunday. The reports of execution-style killings of civilians emerging from liberated areas are both horrifying and chilling. Now, I don't have that picture coming up yet, but don't worry, I'll get to it in a minute. It's something about the way they're doing this to the civilians. It should bother you. It will. I promise you it will. So, this is the next one I've got for you. I called the story of the day because it's the biggest one. It's 10 minutes to 6 in Ukraine. I stopped everything I was doing at work to write this out or to edit this down. That's the photo I'm talking about. I want you to pay very, very careful attention to that woman's hands. I'll describe it to you in a minute. Story of the day. Russia's facing a rapidly escalating international outcry as more horrific images and stories are emerging of alleged atrocities being committed against Ukrainian civilians. One Ukrainian lawmaker said that Russian troops beheaded an elderly woman who was trying to flee the city of Bucha, where bodies have been found in mass graves. Ukrainian parliament member Alexei Goncharenko said Russian troops beheaded an elderly woman who was trying to flee the city, where bodies have been found in mass graves, describing the graphic scene in the Kyiv region as a scene from a horror movie. That's a real genocide. Russians should pay for these war crimes, Goncharenko said Monday, outside of a vehicle where the grandmother allegedly was traveling with her daughter and granddaughter before her gruesome death. Ukrainian officials say the bodies of 410 civilians were found in the Kyiv area towns and cities like Bucha that were recently retaken from Russian forces. AP journalists were able to see the bodies of at least 21 people in various spots around Bucha, northwest of the capital. One group of 9 were all in civilian clothes and were scattered around a site that residents said Russian troops had used as a base. They had appeared to have all been killed at close range. At least 2 had their hands tied behind their backs, one was shot in the head, and another one's legs were bound. One resident, who refused to give his name out of fear for his safety, told the AP that Russian troops went building to building and took people out of basements where they were hiding, checking their phones for any evidence of anti-Russian activity, before taking them away and shooting them. Hannah Harega, another resident, said Russian troops started shooting it at a neighbor who had gone out just to gather wood for heating. They had hit him just above his heel, crushing the bone, and he fell over. Then they shot his left leg off completely with the boot still attached. Then they just shot him all over. Russian troops had rolled into Bucha in the early days of the invasion and stayed up until March 30th. Russia is denying anything to do with the widespread killing of Ukrainian civilians, with Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov saying Monday that we categorically reject the accusations. Russia's defense ministry claimed in a statement that fresh photos and videos of the dead bodies have been stage managed by the Kyiv regime for the Western media. Russia is also asking Monday for a meeting of the UN Security Council to discuss events in the city, but the US and Britain have recently accused Russia of using Security Council meetings to spread disinformation. Meanwhile, Russia is facing a growing avalanche of criticism for its military actions in Ukraine during an invasion that has now lasted 40 days. You can't help but see these images as a punch to the gut, said U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken. Blinken said the U.S. is documenting any and all potential war crimes and vowed accountability. Right. Now, the reason I wanted you to see this photo is because of how her hands are bound. Some of you may remember photos, because you're definitely not of the age to have seen it in person. Your fathers may have, your grandfathers almost certainly have. But there was a time before, let's say 1938 to 39, maybe even into 1940, that anyone of Jewish descent in Germany or Poland would have to wear an armband around their arm, and I believe it had a yellow star and the word Juden on it. And then later on they wore jackets that had the star on the chest. What you're seeing with the Ukrainian people is Russians are bound, they're giving armbands, white armbands, for anyone Ukrainian citizenry. This woman in this photo was bound with her armband and executed. Everything to the right of her head is, well, wet concrete and blood. But, you know, that's a staged picture according to the fucking Russians. Warsaw one's in. Get back in the green room. I'll drag you in. Sorry, I was in the middle of the thing. But I'll drag you in.
Take my place. I've got to take care of something, unfortunately.
Okay. Well, thanks for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'll see you again tomorrow.
I'll pop
anyway.
out and I'll watch in the YouTube side for a little bit.
Okay.
All right.
Night.
You know.
All right. So, they're giving these people armbands that are white, so the soldiers can identify them quickly. And it's also just long enough so they can pull the armbands off, bind your hands together, and execute you. When they don't have the armbands, they bind your arms with shrink wrap. I'm sure you may have seen pictures of that today as well, of a man who was executed point blank range. You can tell by the canoe that his head used to be. His hands were bound by fucking shrink wrap. And his feet. This is the barbarism we're talking about here. This is the kind of shit that sanctions will never stop. Anyway, I'm already age restricted for sure, so let's move on.
I've seen the actual video they were showing.
Yeah, it's shitty.
It's awful.
Yeah. All right, so that was what I called the story of the day just because of depth, but I do have another addition to that, which is pretty good too. So about 5 minutes later, it's 5 to noon in New York, and the United Nations on Monday has confirmed over 3,500 people killed or wounded since the start of the Russian invasion on February 24th. That number is likely just the tip of the iceberg, as the group has been unable to gain access to most of the areas of heavy fighting. The UN Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights officially confirmed that 1,430 civilians have been killed and 2,097 have been injured since the invasion began, with 121 children among the dead. Now, keep in mind, that's the only ones that they can see. Not the ones in mass graves, not the ones that the Russians have burned, stuff like that. Run over with tanks, etc. The office said explosive weapons, heavy artillery, missiles, and airstrikes caused most of the deaths. Yeah, probably caused most of the mutilations of bodies that you can't count anymore, too. The OHCHR, that's the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, has cautioned that this likely was only the beginning. Intense hostilities in the areas across the country, especially in the eastern regions of Donetsk and Luhansk, have prevented independent confirmation. Of course, that's where the executions and murders are the highest, too. Corroboration is being sought in Mariupol, Izium, Popsana, and Irpin. So, also, at the same time, I'm going to make you throw up. There's this asshole's picture. He always has this, like, don't give a fuck look. President Biden on Monday called for an actual war crime trial as evidence of atrocities committed against Ukrainian civilians in Bucha emerged over the weekend, but denied that the attacks amounted to a genocide, while again labeling Russian President Vladimir Putin as a war criminal. Ukrainian officials said that the bodies of 410 civilians were found in the Kyiv area towns and cities. You've already heard this part. In Bucha alone, more than 100 civilians were found buried in mass graves. He is a war criminal, Biden said of Putin Monday morning, upon returning to Washington, D.C., vowing that the United States will continue to provide Ukraine with weapons that they need to continue to fight. I'm pretty sure Zelensky asked for tanks. We didn't send any. He asked for planes. We won't even facilitate the trade. We're not giving him what he's asking. But we keep taking the victory laps anyway.
Can I speak, Sean?
Go.
The only problem I do have is we were actually aiding the Azov Battalion. And if anybody doesn't know about the Azov Battalion, they're neo-Nazis that are actually in a military uniform code.
Well, yeah, but I mean, that's what Putin's got with the Wagner group. It's the funniest thing. You have this dick in charge in Russia who is accusing the Ukrainians of being the very thing he is being and has employed Russian neo-fucking Nazis. Are you kidding me? Their leader has SS badging tattooed on his collarbone and a Nazi chicken on his chest. Are you fucking kidding me?
I was even having a conversation with that person.
Oh, Travis is here. And you're
and he was-
correct. The javelins we have sent have helped. You are correct. Here's the
I was-
problem.
Yep.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry, I keep jumping into your thought. Go ahead.
What I was going to say is I actually had a conversation with a guy.
Yeah.
He's telling me, he was actually twisting my words. You know, I said I have no respect for the people of Donbass and the Azov.
Mm-hmm.
He says, oh, you have no respect for the citizens that are getting killed and murdered by the Ukrainian people? I'm like, oh, dude, I'm talking about the freaking separatists that the Russians are fucking eating them by. You know, I'm like, dude, what the fuck, dude?
Mm.
Like, really, you cannot support Donbass. And I'm talking about the militants.
So, yes, the javelins have helped. You're correct. The is it? It's not the Stinger missile, is it?
Yeah, you're talking one that's like German?
No, that's the Panzerfaust 3.
Because they have that in there too.
We do, yeah. The Dutch came up big with that. They came up huge with that. Now, what I was going to say is the man-pad is the problem. Because you've got a weapon that's only good to 14,300 feet. Russian bombers attack at a higher altitude than that. So your S-300 has to do the job. Your S-300 is slightly outdated, so now Turkey is considering S-400s. That's fine too. Or you could have just gave them the fucking planes they asked for. Oh, it's an escalation thing. It's an offensive weapon. No weapon, newsflash, no weapon in country used by a Ukrainian is an offensive weapon when they're defending their country. And anyone who says otherwise should probably shut the fuck up.
Amen to that.
It's a defensive weapon when you're defending your country.
Also, I believe the Stingers actually have a altitude rating of 14,000 feet.
Yeah, but the man-pad's
Which is
14,300.
pretty good for a freaking man-pad.
It's 14,300 feet. Anyway, give them the tools and let them finish the job. If they ask for tanks, give them tanks. If they ask for planes, give them planes. You call it lend-lease. You don't have to keep them. But then again, every time we do lend-lease, we never ask for it back anyway, so fuck it, whatever. You can just keep us flush with hot Ukrainian women and fucking AKs or something. I'm sure we can work out a deal. Let's move on. Sorry. Go ahead.
I only have one question.
Yes.
Is Putin still freaking, warmongering himself to possibly try to, start a conflict with Poland?
He's going to have to... Okay, let's get into that scenario slightly. This war has been a dumpster fire for him. So now he has to let his dogs loose with human atrocity to sort of make the world not stomach wanting to continue this. Now, he thinks that the weak libtards of the world will throw up and vomit and be like, I need to go to my safe space. I don't want this war anymore. That's part of that is true. He's banking on the fact that the majority of world leaders are those. What he's not banking on is the seeds of hatred he has planted in all of Ukraine, most of Poland, and reminded Finland that, oh yeah, we hate that fucker too. Right?
It's not about the whole rest of Europe.
Plus, there is nothing more motivated than a poor. So if Moldova, who had been used as a staging area, is sick of this shit, those people are going to fight savagely. Not only to defend their country, but to maybe even help Ukraine. Because they've got nothing to lose. They're broke. It's 3 hots and a cot, plus all the bullets you can shoot, and as many Ruskies as you can kill. They're probably going to have a fucking field day. The problem is Putin has to consolidate all his losses He has to retool, he has to rebuild, he has to re-establish logistics again. And then all of that's being telegraphed, right? The whole world is watching him do it. So then it's like everyone's got forward intel on what he's going to do next. Like as soon as the first turn signal to the highway pointed towards Poland is lit, Poland's on mass alert. They're going to be like, they're coming this way. And nobody's going to not see that coming.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, he might be itching for that fight, maybe. One can't deny the possibility. It's improbable, though, because this was supposed to end in 3 days. This is day 40. I did not think that I would be doing this far in. Like, I thought it would have been over by now. It's not. See, the problem is I was disillusioned to the same thing that our White House is disillusioned to. We had never planned. We had planned on Russia winning and then having to negotiate with him in 3 days. That's what we planned on. That's what the world planned on. Nobody planned on the resilience of the Ukrainian military. Nobody has planned on what if the Ukrainians actually win. And there's a theory out there that the world doesn't want Ukraine to win. They want them to fall. How fucked up is that?
Actually, this isn't the first time.
Right.
World War II.
But the thing is like, we never planned on Ukraine surviving. And now we never even imagined Ukraine winning. But now it's time to take guys like General Jack Keane, who said we should have never underestimated those people. Now we need to start thinking about what it's going to take for them to win and give it to them. If they're willing to march across that border into Moscow and drag his corpse out and burn it in front of the world, we should support that. We should absolutely support that. Because that's the only way this is going to end. And when it does end, Russia will be neutered as a military superpower for eternity. They will never be what they were ever again. They won't be allowed to, first of all. But second of all, they never wanted to be this anymore. They're all conscripts. They're all kids that were born in capitalism. That country doesn't want the war. That one bald-headed, feeble asshole is the reason that his whole country is going to be doomed for eternity as Slav shit because of him.
He's a Stalinist Nikolai Ceausescu is the best way I would put it.
They just, those poor people do not deserve this, but they can't fight it either.
Yep.
Because they don't have guns. I could bring this all back around to now you understand why the Second Amendment is so important. And it sounds weird, but it's true. Those people cannot rise up and overthrow their dictator. They can't. They don't have the tools. And some of them have drank the propaganda Kool-Aid because they were promised status, or they were promised a pension, or some of those poor guys in, more rural parts of Russia, they've never been this personally wealthy before. 3 hots and a cot, a gas truck, and an AK-47 with unlimited bullets. If you were a poor farmer in the middle of fucking, just north of Mongolia, out in the middle of yak country, you've never had it so good. It's like, these boots that they issued me are better than any pair of boots I've had my whole life. Do you think that poor peasant farmer is going to want to give that up? No. It's the best he's ever fucking had. So some of those guys will fight to the death for that because they want to keep that. Otherwise, they'd still be shoveling shit in Mongolia. It's a shitty place to be in right now if you live in Russia. Because some of you are misunderstood. Some of you are trapped in an opportunity that you would have never been given in your village, right? I mean, it's such a... This is why world wars suck. Because you can have empathy for your enemy. Because not all of them want to be there. Anyway, moving on. Sorry, I know I'm getting a bit preachy. I haven't done one of these in 12 days, so I'm in rare form. Oh boy. Yeah, I wasn't looking forward to this picture either. Just because he looks really... This poor guy has aged 10 years in 10 days. I swear to God. Like, he looks ragged. 6:57 p.m. Ukrainian time. Dusk. This picture was taken slightly before, but the story was written later. Appearing somber and at times visibly emotional, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky paid a visit to the town of Bucha, outside the capital of Kyiv Monday, after disturbing images surfaced showing the bodies of civilians that were tortured and killed after Russian troops had pulled back in recent days. First of all, it's very important to us that the press is here and there are journalists, Zelensky told reporters in Bucha. We want you to show the world what was happening here, what the Russian military was doing, what the Russian regime is still doing. Ukraine's Prosecutor General Irina Venediktova, that's a really hard Cyrillic to read, said Monday that the bodies of 410 civilians have been retrieved from Bucha, the neighboring towns of Irpin and Hostomel, and smaller villages around Kyiv. These pictures are gonna just keep coming. The Iron Curtain has been pulled away, and now you get to see what was underneath it. This is what Russia has to offer, people. Think about it. Like, you see these vacation spot, commercials. Come see the great wilds of Alaska, or come hike in the mountains of Montana. No. Come see the wonders of what the Russian people can do for you. No thanks. No thanks. No, pass. Hard fucking pass. Moving on. About an hour later, now it's about 8 p.m. in Ukraine. World leaders are reacting. This is a good one. This is my second story of the day. World leaders are reacting with outrage Monday as evidence is emerging of what appears to be the deliberate killings of Ukrainian civilians by the Russian military in cities like Bucha. Are you noticing a theme here today? I did warn you that's what we're talking about. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, who visited Bucha Monday, described the grisly acts as war crimes and that will be recognized by the world as genocide. Russia, meanwhile, is continuing to claim its military had nothing to do with the deaths of civilians, some which were recently found dead with their wrists bound and bullet wounds in their head. I don't think they're bullet wounds in the head when your head is now open to the elements. I think that's more just like an exit channel, but whatever.
Well, you want to tell the Russians otherwise?
Sure. Anyway, here's how the world is reacting to the massacre in Bucha and the discovery of what Ukraine says is the bodies of 410 civilians in towns around the capital, Kyiv, which were recaptured from Russian forces in recent days. Now, I did have a photo. Give me a second. Let me take a look real quick, because I might have it. Is this the battle map I'm thinking of? Yes. Okay. I will try to share this photo as well, since I've got this, since I've got the commentaries to share with you while I'm doing it. So I'm gonna, give me a second, let me put this up, battle map, and I will give you this to give you some context here.
Now, hey Sean.
Yes.
I did say I was going to ask one last question, but
go ahead.
That's one that crossed my mind. I've been talking to people here and there. Yeah. They're claiming that these freaking Nazi Ukrainians are the ones that are causing Bucha and other places. I'm like, you guys have got to be fucking have your head far up your ass, because that's not what I'm hearing.
Well, okay. Next time someone tells you that, right? Just say, ask them this. Who invaded who? That's the first thing. The second thing is who is in control of the Wagner Group? Ask them if they know what the Wagner Group is. Ask them if they know who's in charge of the Wagner Group. And then show them the picture of the leader of the Wagner Group. with the fucking Nazi chicken tattooed on his chest and the SS badges that look like lapel pins tattooed on his neck, and then ask that person, do you want to say anything else equally fucking stupid, or are you done? You see, you have to learn how to turn these people into little drooling children, because that's what they have the mentality of when they say stupid shit like that. Our fault,
and
our job as people, influential people, or people with an education, is to remind people not to say stupid things like that. Anyway, this is the battle map I'm talking about. And if you want to see how the pullout had happened, all the blue area that you're looking at around Kyiv is exactly how the Russian pincher movement originally looked. Now the Ukrainian counterattacks have taken all of it back, right up to the Belarusian border. Furthermore, Russia retreated, I forgot to mention this earlier, they had retreated from Chernobyl and turned over control back to the Ukrainians.
Actually, I got a thing about that when you're done.
Go ahead.
Well, I don't know if you heard of the reports a few days ago, but a few days ago, a ton of Russian soldiers
Radiation
were,
sickness.
Yes, the radiation sickness.
Yeah.
Were evac to a Belarus radiation, a radiation center to treat them for radiation, because we found out that
they were kicking up all the dirt.
It wasn't just all the dirt they were kicking up when they were fighting the Ukrainians or Chernobyl.
Yes.
But those 18-year-old Russian soldiers that had never lived in the Soviet Union, did not know what the Soviet Union was, and did not know they built Chernobyl, they decided to build, or not build, but dig trenches all around Chernobyl.
Yeah, they kicked up the dirt.
They kicked up enough radiation dirt to give them radiation poisoning.
Yeah.
Good job, Russian army.
I think the word you're looking for is morons.
Well,
hey, Sean, you want to hear a crazy thing?
Go ahead. I'm trying to find a picture that Mad Sexy requested, so I have it here somewhere.
You know the Bakelite mags the Russians have been making over since the Cold War?
Yeah.
What if I told you that's actually a poisonous material that Bakelite's actually made of? It's asbestos, believe it or not.
Yeah, I know it is.
So if you're in a chemical plant making that shit,
Bakelite, and another type of Bakelite is it's acid and something else.
No, it's got asbestos in it. They even, like, my old Buick had it too. All right, so at the request of Mad Sexy, he wants to know who the head of the Wagner Group is. His name is Dmitry Utkin. Here he is. This is what this neo-Nazi fuck looks like. And pay attention to the Nazi chicken on his chest and the SS badges tattooed around his neck as if he was wearing a uniform of skin, like fucking the Tooth Fairy in the Hannibal Lecter series. That piece of shit right there. Next time anybody mentions the word Ukraine and that they're Nazis, show them this picture. Like,
let's see what it's
like draw it, like print this out, tape it to your fist, and then put it through their face so they never forget.
This guy,
this fucking prick here, is a Russian neo-Nazi who heads the Wagner Group.
Oh, Sean, here's the crazy thing about Russians siding with fascist Nazism. Their old saying is, it's a betrayal to all of Mother Russia.
Shit. Anyway. All right, let me get to the story part, because I gave you the battle map just to give you an idea of how much was taken back. I mean, I know I've been kind of loud. All right, so let's go ahead and get into that part, but I'll leave the battle map up so you guys can see it here.
Yep.
French President Emmanuel Macron said his government is extremely shocked at what happened in Bucha, and we have condemned it with utmost strength. Macron said it was the Russian army that was in Bucha, and those who committed these crimes will have to answer for them. What just happened in Bucha calls for a new round of sanctions and very clear measures. Sorry, every time I see that word I get pissed off. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said the reports of Ukrainian civilians who have been killed, raped, and severely wounded by Russian troops is beyond reprehensible, and that Russia must answer to the world for what they've done. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez said, I hope that everything possible can be done so that those behind these war crimes don't go unpunished, and that they can appear before the courts, in this case, the International Criminal Court, to answer these alleged cases of crimes against humanity, war crimes, and why not say it, of genocide too. Everything possible that can be done. Do you know what the one thing that can be done is? I don't know. How about that the UN goes in and pushes every Russian out of the country? That's what could be done. Do you want to do it? No. Anyway, moving on. Japanese Foreign Minister Yoshimasa Hayashi said that he was strongly shocked that a brutal act of violence was conducted on civilians in the outskirts of Kyiv, adding that murdering innocent civilians is a violation of international humanitarian law and is absolutely unacceptable. Thank you, Sensei Obvious. Moving on. Prime Minister Boris Johnson's spokesman, Max Blaine, said bodies found in areas recently recaptured from Russia showed despicable acts against against innocent civilians, and that yet there was more evidence that Putin and his army are committing what appears to be war crimes in the Ukraine. The photo that he was shown was of a woman who was raped in front of her kids and set on fire and laughed at as she burned to death. Does that sound like somebody you want to negotiate with? No. Moving on.
Never.
Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama said in a tweet that the dreadful images of civilians killed in the Bucha massacre, Ukraine, said that by the Russian army are shocking. Everything must be done for an independent investigation of such horrible crimes, he added. Nothing could ever excuse such cruelty. What a pain and what a shame. Mad Sexy asks, what are the chances that we end up over there fighting? Just thoughts running through your head. We have 130,000 troops amassed along the border with Poland and Slovakia and Germany.
Actually, that's the wrong amount.
It's more now?
It's more now. From what I heard the other day, it's 142,000.
Okay, I've been gone 12 days, so I mean...
They added more just in the last... just right before the whole Bucha thing happened, they added more.
So, there you go. It's not what's the chances, it's when. Pick a day. We're going to start an over-under here soon, I'm sure.
It's either Russia is going to do something so egregious that NATO has to step in and do something.
You mean more than Bucha?
More than Bucha, yeah.
You can't do anything more.
Well, you say that, but the human mind is sick.
The human mind can only take what the ass can accept.
Yeah.
And apparently UN has a very supple asshole.
So either that, or the Russians are going to have to attack somebody else, or attack, or fight the Ukrainians and step over the borders to one of the other nations, NATO nations, to invoke Article 5. That's the only time.
That's the thing. Even if they do step over the border, Article 5's not going to happen. They're still going to be a bitch about it.
Now, here's a question for you, Sean.
Go ahead.
What if Poland actually did a peacekeeping mission in Ukraine?
That has been discussed already and shot down immediately.
I'm talking Polish volunteers, not from the army.
There are volunteers from, I think, 40 countries already in Ukraine, including the United States. Yeah, I've got a friend who hopped a plane in 48 hours after he went to the Ukrainian embassy in New York. He's already there. Anyway, I'm going to continue on with the leaders that are appalled and outraged, but not lifting a fucking finger. Yeah, sorry. Kosovo's Prime Minister, Albin Kurti, said that the bodies found in Bucha reminded him of similar atrocities committed in his country during the 98 and 99 war between ethnic Albanian independent fighters and Serbian forces. Scott, don't you remember I talked about that shit today? In the chat? I was like, you know, the same shit happened in Sarajevo and fucking Croatia. Yeah, same fucking thing. Anyway, mass graves, people brutally killed with body parts missing, burned houses, and cities turned to rubble are all familiar scenes from genocidal regimes. That's from Kosovo's prime minister. Poland's prime minister, Mateusz Morawiecki. Am I saying that right?
Close enough.
Well, we have a poll here, so I figured he'd know. Anyway, he said Monday that Russia is already a totalitarian fascist state today, adding that the bloody massacres perpetrated by Russian soldiers deserve to be called that by name. This is genocide. This is a crime that must be tried as the crime of genocide. That's great, but you have to capture them. You have to bring them to heel. Anyway. Despite the chorus of criticism, Russia is urging world leaders, get this shit, Russia is urging world leaders to exercise restraint when it comes to talking about Bucha. This information should be seriously doubted. From what we've seen, the video material can't be trusted, as our specialists from the Defense Ministry detected signs of video forgery and various fakes, Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov claimed, despite a steady stream of pictures from news agencies all over the world confirming the death and destruction. Yeah, they're all fake videos, right? The facts, the chronology of events also don't speak in favor of the credibility of these claims. We would require many world leaders not to rush statements with groundless accusations, Peskov added. Here's a thought. Fuck you.
Maybe they're doubting the authenticity of these images and video because the Russians have also been shooting the reporters as well. Remember that.
Yeah. No shit, right?
They're like these pictures, and don't believe these pictures and video. We already killed all the reporters that were in Bucha.
2 Fox journalists have been killed. One was I think she was a Ukrainian liaison that was working for Fox. She was killed. A senior producer was killed. His photo has been up on Fox News like every day. He's got like a big Mario mustache. And then their combat journalist, Benjamin Hall, was pretty badly wounded, and he had to be evac'd out of the country in an underground railroad type situation and stabilized in Poland before he could be moved to Germany. Like, they still haven't discussed the details of how badly wounded he was. But the other 2 were killed in the same attack, so it must have been pretty damn serious. Anyway, let's move on, because we're almost to the bottom. We're still going to be 2 hours, though. Damn it. 2:02 p.m. Central Standard Time, so it's lunchtime for me. And it's 9:02 Ukrainian time. It's the dark. This is usually where the Russian military or Air Force starts to be active, but not today. The bodies, this story sucks. The bodies of the mayor of a Ukrainian village outside of Kyiv and her husband and their adult son were found in a shallow grave after the 3 were abducted by Russian occupying forces. Mayor of the village of Motizhin, Olga Sukenko, it's not Chenko, it's Sukenko, was unfortunately killed in captivity by the Russians. Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister Irina Vereshchuk confirmed. This is a war crime. Yes, it is. We know this already. You don't have to keep saying it. Vereshchuk said this in an address of Sukenko's killing. The guilty will inevitably be punished in accordance with international humanitarian law. Sure, if you catch them. Vereshchuk said that there are 11 mayors and community heads in Russian captivity across the Ukraine, including leaders from Kyiv, Kherson, Kharkiv, Zaporizhzhia, Mykolaiv, and Donetsk. How many of those guys do you think are also in shallow graves? They just haven't found them yet. Probably all of them. Probably all of them. It's a shock and awe tactic. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention this. Part of getting my internet fixed involved me surpassing T3 speeds. I now have the fastest commercial internet speed you can possibly get. So,
Congrats.
and I'm paying half the price for it too, which is nice. But I was able to speed up my upstream bandwidth quite a bit. So if you notice that there's been no lag or no cutouts, it's because of that. And I think I might be able to even turn it up higher. So we might be able to do these in 1440p eventually. I'll have to work on that. But I was in a hurry tonight. Just sidebar. All right, so moving on. About an hour later, now 3 o'clock. This is when I'm interrupted constantly at work because all the pickups are starting to happen. It's 4:03 in Washington D.C. and I have this photo for you. And it says White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan told reporters Monday that the United States is planning to announce further sanctions against Russia in the wake of actions President Biden has characterized as war crimes. You can expect further sanctions announcements this week. Sorry. And we are coordinating with our allies and partners on what the exact parameters of that will be. But yes, this week we'll have additional economic This week we will have additional economic pressure elements to announce. Sullivan echoed the president by describing Russian forces' alleged actions in Bucha, Ukraine, as a war crime, but said that they were not ready to call it genocide because you're fucking cowards. We have seen atrocities, we have seen war crimes, he said, but added that they have not seen a level of systemic deprivation of life that could be defined as a genocide. Jake Sullivan, please get on a plane and airdrop your stupid ass into Kyiv and don't come back until you know. Then you can say whatever you want. But again, the question I have to ask you is, what good does any of it do if it doesn't stop killing today, or tomorrow, or yesterday, or 2 weeks from now? None of that is going to stop it. He says, no wonder I couldn't understand you. I'm used to piecing your words together. What? I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Let's see. Another hour goes by. So now it's 11:05 p.m. in Paris. Yeah. And I got this guy up again. Who, I'm sorry, but in that picture, he looks like he should be, I don't know, the host of the BAFTA Awards, giving the Lifetime Achievement to Mr. Bean or something. Sorry. France is expelling many Russian diplomats following a massacre in the Ukrainian town of Bucha. France has decided this evening to expel many Russian personnel posted in France under diplomatic status. These activities are counter to our security interests. Read a Monday statement from the Ministry of Europe and Foreign Affairs. Oh, before I do that, let me go ahead and drag Jaime in here because he's been coming in and out twice. So, good evening to you. Let's see, where did I leave off? This action is a part of a European movement. Our first responsibility is always to ensure the security of French and European citizens, the statement continued. Approximately 35 diplomats will be expelled from the country following the announcement, according to Agence France Presse. It's France Presse, sorry. It's Agence France Presse. I just read that really weird. Earlier on Monday, French President Emmanuel Macron called for additional sanctions on Russia, according to this report. Yeah, more sanctions. Great idea. White House National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan later announced that the U.S. will be working with its allies to impose, you know it, future sanctions. Fuck out of here. Anyway, about an hour later again, and we're going to go back to Ukraine. And it is 12:08 a.m. Tuesday morning, day 41. But it is satellite image time. That is satellite imagery shows bodies laid out in Bucha streets for weeks, contradicting Russian claims. High-resolution satellite imagery from Maxar Technologies collected over Bucha, Ukraine, corroborates recent social media videos and photos that show bodies lying out in the streets for several weeks. The images contradict Russia's claim that the bodies appeared on the city streets after, quote, all Russian units withdrew completely from Bucha around March 30th. Other images show a probable mass grave on the grounds of the Church of St. Andrew and Piervogevano, All Saints. Sorry, I've never read that Cyrillic before. Russia dismissed the images as another hoax and demanded an emergency meeting of the UN Security Council regarding the provocations of Ukrainian radicals in Bucha. The massacre at Bucha has prompted outrage from Western leaders, including President Biden, who accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of committing war crimes and called for him to be put on trial. What are you doing, Betty? Sorry, my dog's getting antsy. Here. I think she's gonna go poop on the pad. Oh, she can't. Sorry. Here, come here. There you go. Go to bed. Hopefully, don't poop up there. Sorry, I have to watch her for a second. Lay down. Oh man. Hey, no. God damn, no. Stop. Fuck. I knew that was going to happen. Damn it. Well. Shit. Sorry. Doing it live, right?
Quite literally.
Yeah, well, you know. Like she started pacing, and then all of a sudden she popped a squat, and I was like, I know what that means. Anyway. Okay, where did I leave off? Oh no, I already finished that one. Okay. Sorry about that. That totally derailed me. Last story of the day. See, we almost made it all the way through before that happened. No, she didn't poop on the pad. She just popped a squat and peed. Anyway. 6:08 p.m. Central. So this was the last story I was able to pick up before the end of the show, or before the end of the show prep. Here's your picture. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is slated to address the United Nations Security Council meeting tomorrow morning. Well, it's already tomorrow for him. It's 1:08 a.m. So he's probably still having meetings. Damn it, she's pooping now. Thanks, Alice. Actually, no, she missed the pad, though. Damn. Anyway, the official Twitter account... Oh, sorry. Let me start that over. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is slated to address the United Nations Security Council meeting Tuesday about the latest alleged atrocities by Russian forces against his nation. The official Twitter account of the United Kingdom's delegation to the UN announced the upcoming speech, tweeting, "The UK presidency of the Council will ensure the truth is heard about Russia's war crimes. We'll expose Putin's war for what it really is." The announcement comes after Zelensky visited Bucha, where Russian forces allegedly left the dead bodies of civilians in the streets, according to satellite imagery, the picture I showed you just prior. That is the first time I've done an entire show based off of the events of one city. But it was so heinous that you can't not talk about it. So there's a couple of updates since I did that last story about the Security Council meeting. I'm sure tomorrow it's going to be fireworks at the Security Council meeting, for sure. He's going to again ask to close the skies. He's going to ask for tanks. He's going to ask for planes. He's going to insist that the world gets off its collective ass and do something about this. Otherwise, he's going to have to start to get angry at us. And he's going to say, what good are you if you can't help me? And he would technically not be wrong. Because this whole idea of the United Nations, this whole idea of a new world order, I guess, this whole idea of the EU is supposed to be a collective group to protect you from bullies, right? That's the way it was supposed to work. That's the way we were supposed to work. Oh, you're gonna fuck with this little country, you overbearing bastard? Well, now you gotta deal with us, and we're the guy who steps in front. And we protect the little guy. The United States has protected the little guy since 1945. And yet all of a sudden now we don't? The rest of the world doesn't? Are you kidding me? Now, I get it. We have a coward in the White House. That is without question. He's trying to do Donald Trump things without being Donald Trump. See, before, you had Donald Trump going, hey, you need to pay your fair share. You need to become more involved, or I have no use for you in my country with the UN. They started cutting checks, didn't they? Now you've got Biden going, can you guys go ahead and, kick this off, and maybe I'll just follow behind you guys and sweep in the glory later? Y'all do it first. Because he doesn't have a brain, first of all. Like, if this was the Wizard of Oz, he's missing everything. He doesn't have a brain because it's slowly rotting between his ears.
He doesn't have a heart.
He doesn't have a heart because if he did, the words coming out of his face would sound more intelligible.
And again, because he's a Democrat, he doesn't have any courage either.
And he absolutely has no courage because he's not in charge. He's just a puppet. Anyway, so let me see. There's a couple of other updates. Ukrainian Deputy Prime Minister says that 11 mayors remain in Russian captivity. Okay, so we already knew that.
Did they execute one the other day?
They found the bodies of one with his wife and, or no, it was a she. Her husband, her adult son, and one of their assistants were all found in a shallow grave just outside the city they were abducted in. There are 11 others. And now you're starting to think how many of those are in shallow graves. Let's see. After that, there was a story from the Kyiv Independent that claims that 10 are dead after Russian forces have shelled a hospital in Mykolaiv. According to Mayor Alexander Senkovich, Russians have shelled residential areas, 2 hospitals, an orphanage, 11 kindergartens, and 12 schools, all today. 10 people killed, 46 injured in Mykolaiv. All were killed with or attacked with cluster munitions. About half an hour ago, there was another story that came out that says... That's a good one. Hard to find words. Killing of civilians in Bucha by Russian war criminals is appalling beyond any measure. Please help us stop Russia. Demand your governments to act now. It says, no photo from Bucha here. You already saw the photos. Act now. That's clever. That was from the Ukraine government organizational Twitter official account. It's pretty good. Looks like I think that's all I've got for you tonight. So unless you guys have anything you want to add, I've got to go clean up poop now.
Yep, have fun.
I mean, it looks like a jelly bean because it's a tiny dog, but still. Alright, well, in that case, I guess what I'll do is I will play this. And I will thank you all for welcoming me back after a 12-day hiatus. And we will be back tomorrow, as usual, because everything works now. And if you are new to my channel, welcome. But if you're a regular here, welcome back. Either way, check out my other playlists and see if my other interests might be of interest to you, especially since I uploaded more gun content last weekend. Anyway, this was the War Room. This was day 40. This was probably the most disturbing episode I've had to do to date. Don't forget the people of Bucha. Don't forget anything you've seen.
Cannot be infringed.
Slava Ukraini. We'll see you tomorrow.